In the wake of yet another mass shooting, this time at the Covenant School in Nashville, Ketch Secor, the lead singer of a popular country bluegrass band Old Crow Medicine Show, has decided it's time to speak out on gun reform. He writes an editorial for the New York Times and eventually ends up teaming up with Left, Right, and Center host David Green as they travel around the country talking about guns and its impact on all of us. The film is called Louder Than Guns, and we're joined today by the director, Doug Prey. Doug, welcome to Cinemaphile.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is a thoughtful film, and the fact that you were able to gather to this project a lot of people who are user friendly when it comes to discussing these kinds of things, a way into these difficult conversations with people who you might assume may not want to talk about it or may not want to have a rational, reasonable discussion about it. But this is all blown up over the course of this film. We see this film smashing stereotypes. Let's put it. So tell me a little bit about your involvement, how that you came to this project, Louder Than Guns.
Sure. As you said, Ketch Secor was deeply moved in a bad way by the Covenant shooting, the Covenant School in his hometown of Nashville. And as he says in the film, when it happens in your town, like they're always just headlines, right? And they're horrifying. We're all horrified by them. But when it happens in your town, it's really like, oh, wow, he knew people there. He knew, I don't know if he knew those who were murdered, but he was close to that school. And so really hit him and it struck him like, how come country music never says anything about this? They have huge fundraisers for tornadoes and hurricanes and things like that. And, musicians often come together for causes, but why is this hands off? Why can nobody say, hey, wait a minute, school children are being killed? And so as you said, he wrote this op-ed and then he connected with David Green. And the connection between the two of them is they both specialize at working with people on all sides of an issue. David is as a former NPR host and as the host of Left, Right, and Center, his whole job is like getting people to talk from disparate points of view. And Ketch sees it as a performer saying, wait a minute, I play country music and that draws a really wide demographic. So the people in his front row are everybody. He's got hippies and rednecks and gun owners and non-gun owners, and they can all come together and sing along with his songs and dance and have just a grand old time at his concerts. He's like, how come they can all come together here, but when it comes to talking about guns in America, nobody's going to talk about it. Nobody wants to. It's a hot button issue. It's polarized. Everybody's in their corner, and they're either like pro Second Amendment and there's no discussion, or you're ban everything and there's no discussion. And not that that's true. I mean, the
No, that's
truth
right.
is that 80 or 90% of all Americans actually probably agree on a lot of things. But all we ever hear is the loud mouths have taken over the entire discussion. And we're all afraid to say what we think. So they called me, and I've never done I don't do like kind of big political advocacy films. My films are more celebrations of culture. I've done a lot of music films. I've done a lot of films about different artists and all sorts of things. But in those dozen or more documentaries that I've made in the last couple decades, I never had the guts to do like a hard-hitting polemic, and that's why I don't really go for film. I mean, I admire them, and if they move me, then I move to action. So there's great ones out there, but it wasn't in me, and I'm a little like David. I'm like I always see both sides, and so I could never make a film where it's just we're right and they're wrong. I could never do that, even if I despise
Yeah.
things on the other side. So they brought me into it, and long story short, I just said, well, God, if it's all about having a conversation, well, why don't we have those conversations and I'll film them because I've filmed plenty of group discussions and people's opinions over the years. And so why don't we follow the band from city to city? We can make it a music film because it's really Old Crow is kind of what's bringing people together, and music brings people together anyway. So with all those kind of theories and ideas, we just set out and we just started making the film. And we started in Owensboro, Kentucky, and got a very rural kind of point of view about guns and gun ownership. Then we went to I think Missoula was next,
Yeah.
which was a very Western point of view, and and very diverse groups we brought together. So you're kind of hearing it from all sides. And then we were in Chicago, which is a very different situation, Chicago, but still a lot of gun violence and a lot of opinions about it. and ended up back in Nashville. And in every case, we just kind of, I don't know, recruited regular citizens,
Yeah.
whatever that means, just not people who are up on their soapbox or who are running organizations or who are politicians. There was a few officials in there like, deputy and people like that, but
Right. Right.
and a few people who had been in office a little bit, but mostly just regular people. But the key, everybody from all walks of life. Like we wanted to just bring them together at a table and have a respectful conversation.
When you say everybody, there are points of view expressed in this film for people advocating for gun ownership
Hmm.
that are unexpected. And I'm going to inject something in this, which many years ago I was in politics and I was working with somebody, and we were in New York City, and we went on a tour of a predominantly African American community. The person I was working with was very much gun regulation. That's what that's his was point of view and mine as well. And we were walking through that part of town, and and African American community, there were a lot of guns. Obviously, I mean that's part of sort of the, I don't know if that's the stereotype, but in this part of the community, they said we have a lot of guns here because if we call the police, they might not show up for an hour.
Right.
That was shocking to me. This happened in the mid 90s was when I was working with him. And I never thought of it that way. I never would have thought of it that way unless I had been told. We don't get the police don't come when we call. That's
Yeah.
a wow for me. That was a wow for me.
Yeah, I had a lot of wows on this where I would project my own stupid stereotypes about what I thought somebody was, politically or otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I know this kind of a person. They're going to say this, and they wouldn't. Sometimes the most cliche, progressive, liberal looking person was like, no, I have guns. I have an AR. But I think this, and I think there should be legislation, and it needs to be smarter legislation, whatever.
Yeah.
And they would be very astute about what maybe they think isn't happening. I met plenty of who I thought might be very, I don't know, strident gun owners, on kind of the other side of the argument, who I thought wouldn't have any tolerance. And then, David Green really points this out pretty nicely in the film, but he's like, people who have guns, a lot of people who have guns in their home, they have them because they want to protect their family. And a lot of people who are really anti-gun and would never touch a gun or never bring a pistol into their home, a handgun, they want to protect their family. And if you look at it in this kind of backwards way, well, they agree on that. So why can't they come together and kind of like talk about solutions or at least share with each other where they're coming at so the divide doesn't seem so huge? People are afraid to talk about it. So what we would do when, we would get these groups together at the table and say, hey, we're going to film this, but we're not here for reality TV. We're not here for the argument or the soundbite. And intentionally, we made a really big point of that and say, please, what we want to do is film a conversation, however it goes. Please be as honest as you can, but let's all listen to each other. Those are the rules. You got to just listen. Let somebody talk about where they came from. And you start to realize like so many gun owners, it's in their heritage or it's in their blood or it's like maybe their grandfather gave them their first gun when they were 7 and it's like there's no chance they're ever going to give up that gun or that idea that it's a freedom or something that was an important part of their family and their relationships. And once I'm more on the liberal side, I'm more on the ban, for many years of my life, I was more on the ban everything side. It just makes you go, oh, the ban everything, that's not going to work. It's just not going to work in this country. There's too many millions and millions and millions of guns anyway. And it's a part and parcel of our history, which I don't like, but I can't change. It just makes you way more open-minded. And I think on the other side, the more Second Amendment gun owning, types of folks, I think it really helps them to understand kind of where we're coming from too. I say we, like that process is extremely healthy. I think it's actually therapeutic. And we filmed that. And when you see people kind of coming together, it's actually a pretty positive film.
Yeah.
It starts out with a lot of different, you're aware of shootings throughout the film. It's not a happy film. It's a very dark subject. But the end the whole film works towards more like, wait, we can come together. Our goal was to have it be an uplifting experience, which was the experience we had talking to everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just want to let people know that Louder Than Guns is going to be playing here in Los Angeles beginning on July 28th at the Laemmle Monica Theater, as well as on the 29th at the Laemmle Glendale Theater. So if you're in the Southern California area, as you all know, the Laemmle Theater chain is among, if it is the greatest of all theater chains when it comes to independent films, interesting, provocative films. And this is certainly one of those. Without getting into a long-winded discussion about why are guns such an important part of our history, it just reminds me it's one of many seemingly intractable issues around the American experience that are directly related to a very, very complicated history of this country.
Yeah.
Why the glamorization of the West in ways that are completely inappropriate to the actual behavior of the people who settled the West, and so much more about stereotypes, race, etc., etc. That's the part that frustrates me, is we are almost always operating on assumptions that simply are not correct. For me, that's the problem. We
Yeah.
operate on mythology as opposed to actual history. And that's a big part. I'm not saying it's the only thing. You're right about what you were saying. It's just for me, I wish we were more honest about our history. That's it.
It's interesting, and it's such a big part of storytelling. Guns, I mean, violence and conflict
Yeah.
always, unfortunately, or whatever, makes for the best stories. I mean, going back thousands of years, I'm sure the battle stories were the
Yeah.
most exciting. I mean, so that's also innately human. It's just very interesting. You know, Ketch says something in the film about how the history of country music, well, it's a lot of songs about violence and guns and shootings. I laugh because it's like, yeah, that's always been there. And of course, we know the history of Hollywood.
Well,
But you
I
said,
just, well, let me just really quickly,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just saw Odyssey. That's 2,700-year-old story that doesn't get much more violent than that. You'd be hard pressed to find a story that was more violent than that. So to your point, we are just that's yes. Go
But
ahead.
smashing stereotypes is something I just love doing. And we were already talking about that. But to go in, you know, what you said about your experience in that neighborhood where no, people are arming themselves because they're actually afraid they don't have police protection. And we met a man in Missoula who's like, hey, he's represents the gay community there.
Yeah,
And he was just saying the same thing. Like, we feel threatened and therefore we're armed. And so therefore we have a program to train people all about safe gun handling. You know, our film it's very different from a typical advocacy film
yeah,
because it's actually we don't have a prescription. We don't talk about bill number 27B or we don't go into all that stuff.
yeah.
People speak about it, but in the end, the call to action is pretty simple. It's just like, can we just please be adults and talk? We
Exactly.
talk to your neighbor, talk to the one guy or woman who you think is really disagrees with you.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Yes.
Just bring it up because the more we talk, the better, the closer we're going to get to figuring this out.
Right. When these group conversations become a revolutionary act like you see in this film, that's when we can see change. That's when we can get closer to a place where we're not at each other's throats. And I will say that going into a theater with your neighbors is almost a revolutionary act at this point. You walk out of that theater with your neighbors. And
Yeah,
that's a healthy thing for us to be doing right now.
it's true. We 2026 we coined a term we call radical listening because nobody listens these days. It's just yelling.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I laugh and it makes me sad. I shouldn't laugh at that. It
No, no,
pisses me off.
it was a thing about humor, the Greek definition of, if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. Kind of, yes, yes. So I completely agree with you. And it was great to get an opportunity to get to know Catch Secor a little bit, as well as the other members of Old Crow Medicine Show, but which, by the way, I'm a fan of, by the way, just so for the record.
They're an incredible
And
band.
they are. And I love that. I love that. I don't say genre, but that kind of music. I'm a big fan of the Appalachian sort of where the kind of the wellspring of so much of country music, and as well as the blues, and so much came out of that region of our country.
Yeah. Catch is like an historian too. He knows every
Yeah,
song, going back through the roots. I mean,
yeah.
he's really outspoken. And I will say one last thing about the music thing is I wouldn't have done this film if it wasn't a music film
Mm,
at all. I wouldn't
mm,
have touched it. But I was like, okay, that's my way in because I've done a lot of music stuff. And I was just like, wow, I get to actually, music is it's almost like the Trojan horse of the film. Like
yeah,
we come in with music and then people are in the same, they're talking, they're
yeah.
all together.
Well, it is very, very well done, and it is, as the reviews have been great for it as well. It is poignant. It is thought-provoking. There's a lot of things that will catch your attention. There's some remarkable and wrenching stories to be told, and there's also those moments of people reaching across that conversation with one another, whether it be in a barber shop, whether it be at a barbecue, whatever it is. And yeah, congratulations on this film called Louder Than Guns.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. We've been speaking with the director. I believe you're also writer and producer. Do I? Yes. And all those three, you're the triple threat, is
Producer
it?
and editor.
And
Yeah.
editor. That's right. And editor. So the four tool player, as we say in baseball, Doug Prey. Doug, thank you so very much for your time and thank you for Louder Than Guns.
Thanks, Mike. Love to
Thank
be on
you.
your show.